Hey guys, so this is for biweekly video post number 3. The first term that I have to be most important in this week's lesson was evacuation. So evacuation is when people are removed from or leave a dangerous place. Disaster myths are a collection of beliefs about how people behave during disasters that have been proven wrong through research. So disaster myths were in that document for chapter 8 that was shared out, and it had a bunch of myths in it that I didn't even know before. The third term that I have is panic. So this is an uncontrollable fear or anxiety. Panic is different than fear, and in the document it really expressed that, how the two are very different and are often confused. So disaster shock is a condition that is shown after disaster takes place. It can include disoriented thinking along with a person being in a serious state of shock. And then risk communication is to initiate and direct protective action. So the TED Talk with the two girls that were in that disaster of the tornado, it was very interesting. They were able to figure out that they had to solve the problems really quick, and they wanted to set up this software that would prepare the residents in the community, and they just wanted people to be aware of the resources they had instead of being in a situation where they don't have all the resources and they aren't sure what to do, and then they're kind of stuck. So they were able to just share their story, and I thought it was really cool. I like the quote that the one girl said. She said, "Emergency preparedness is a big deal in disaster recovery because it makes towns safer and more resilient." So I thought that was really cool because that's all we're learning about in the past few weeks. But she also said how they need to give the locals the tools because they become the experts. When you're in your own community, you're a local, and if you reach out to your community and you solve problems, you give help, kind of like these girls did in their own town in Massachusetts, you can become the expert instead of somebody from, an out-of-towner coming into your town and trying to fix things. You guys are the first on-hand people that should be working on the disaster itself. So the muddiest point I found with this week's lesson was going along with the whole disaster shock myth and the term I was stating before. So it stated in the document that disorders like situational anxiety, phobia, and depression are very much separate than disaster shock. So I guess I was just a little confused because I don't know, if I was in a disaster like that, I feel like I would have, more of a shock that would lead to, like maybe a little bit of anxiety and things like that. But it did say that in the document it said there's a small proportion of disaster-stricken population is affected with these disorders like anxiety, situational anxiety, things like that. So it says as well that it appears more frequently in sudden onset. So I guess that was just my muddy point, just the fact that, I was trying to put myself in their shoes to see how I would react in all these situations, but, I guess I wouldn't know until I'm actually in a disaster like that. So, stemming off of the National Center for PTSD article, do you think you would be mentally prepared for a large disaster? So in other words, the two girls, Katria and Morgan O'Neill, that were in the TED Talk that I was explaining before, do you think you could go through something as they experienced it like that? Do you think you could branch out and help people, or do you think you'd be more prone to a disorder after, like PTSD from such a dramatic disaster?